Hello, students. Welcome to our third lesson for our historical fiction writing unit. We have done some research. We know some information about the time period that we're writing about, which in our case is the Industrial Revolution. We have done some planning in terms of thinking of the characters and the plot and the setting of our story. Now we're going to work on the organization part of our planning process. We will start drafting tomorrow, which I know some of you are probably chomping at the bit, waiting to do that. But today we just want to consider our organization before we begin drafting. Okay. So today I just want to show you the document I want you to work on. You already have some of this information tucked away from yesterday's lesson, but I would like you to consider using this template as you prepare to write your story. So, yes, a title of the story. Sometimes that is a very hard thing to do. Make up a title right now that you're comfortable with, and then after you finish your story, if you feel that you have discovered a more appropriate title, then feel free to type that in. By is, of course, the author, who is you, right? For this setting, I want you to put time and the place, okay? Now, just a quick note, you are not typing up your whole story right now. These are just jotting down notes, organizational notes, so you will be prepared to write your draft tomorrow, or at least begin writing your draft tomorrow. So I want you to make sure that you are somewhat specific with what you type down today, but you do not need to write out your whole story. I do not want you to write your whole story. The purpose of this lesson is to organize your thoughts, to organize your story so you already go into your drafting process having a clear idea of where you're going to start, where you're going, and where you're going to end up. Okay? So, that being said, make sure you write down the time and the place for setting. Make sure you write down the main character. You don't have to write a lot, just maybe the person's name and a little bit of details about the main character. And then also some minor characters. Yesterday we talked about the more characters that you have in a story, the more complex the story begins. So you're going to want to consider limiting your characters and not having too many. Okay. So for story structure, that is the main important part that I want you to work on today for your organization template, okay? For the beginning, I want you to jot down notes. You are not writing the entire story right now. What you're going to do is you're going to let me know what the introduction of the setting, the introduction of the characters, and the problem that needs to be solved by the main character might look like. You can do this in 2 to 3 sentences. Make it brief, but at least that gives you an idea of where you're going to start your story. For the middle part of your story, make sure that you discuss a little bit of how your characters are going to interact with each other and how your characters are going to work towards solving the problem. Yesterday, we talked about how building suspense often has your characters faltering, failing sometimes at trying to solve their problem, whatever it is. Okay. So that's what you're going to discuss in this part of your organization template. Keep it brief, 2 to 3 sentences long, and then that will give you a good idea of when you go into drafting of where your characters are going to be going after the beginning of the story is written. And last but certainly, definitely not least, is the end of your story. Write 2 or 3 sentences on how your main character is going to solve the problem and describe what life is going to be like once the character has solved the problem. Oftentimes in a Disney story, you might have, and they lived happily ever after. But for really good, well written novels, there's much more to that. So make sure that you jot down what life is going to be like now for the main character. So now you know where your characters have started, where they're going, and where they're going to end up before you even begin drafting. That will help you develop your story as you write it. Okay. So, again, may the force be with you. Enjoy this historical fiction organization template. Make sure that you have it in a tab or printed out by your side when you begin drafting tomorrow. One more quick note, I just wanted to let you know I am going to add one more video to this particular lesson, the third step of planning. I am going to read a silly and yet helpful book called The Plot Thickens. Yes, The Plot Thickens. That should also give you a good starting point before you start drafting your story. All right? Make a great organizational template, everyone.